and we said, we didn't know that the laws changed. They said the Supreme Court, just passed a new rule, and, you guys can't film us. And we said, we really didn't know, So it was just the attitude and the aggression that was given to us I think it was above and beyond what it should have been. And the reason that I stood up was because if I was able to articulate all the things that I did on the video and talk to them in that manner, and I was still treated like that, it just made me feel like what would happen when my 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids in the street are engaged with the police, and they're going to be treated in such a manner that even if they're not doing anything wrong, you can make them kind of snap out to where they might push you back or do something, with the aggression and the taunting that was given to us.
What were you asking the police when you were filming them?
Yeah, I was basically describing the park, the situation, the mannerism that we've witnessed as far as somebody that frequents the park for the last 15 years. And I was explaining that if there is illegals, if we see anybody, we kind of police that park ourselves. And we have a certain level of respect. Everybody that's out there will stand up and say, hey, if we see a car double parked and they're holding up traffic, somebody will say, hey, come on, you gotta move, or the police are gonna come and you're gonna have problems. So this is something that we're aware of. We're used to the heavy police presence. They come through all the time. They're always there. We don't have a problem with that. As I stated on the tape, we really just want you guys to communicate with us a little bit better and not always have a threatening, allow us to talk to you and not feel like there's going to be repercussions just for speaking up.
And then what happened after, because I saw the tape then, how the female officer came out and said, do you have permission to record me? And it was, you were saying, I'm just filming, or I'm just filming this situation here, I didn't know. And then it goes dark.
Right.
So what happens when it goes dark after that?
She says in Spanish, agarra la otra, which means get the other one, ask her for ID. And that was to assume that we possibly had some type of records or something. So she then, asked us for our ID. And put them in, because he was already handcuffed.
She handcuffed you?
Yeah, he was already handcuffed, and he had been handcuffed for about a half an hour. When she spoke in Spanish and said, agarra la otra, then he came to put the handcuffs on me. He only cuffed one hand. When he cuffed the one hand, I told the guy in the white shirt, which is Lieutenant, I said, what's going on? Why am I being detained? Why am I being handcuffed just for speaking? And then I said, you guys might not want to do this. I'm walking with the governor in the Bud Billiken parade on Saturday, and this is not right. And then he told them to take the cuff off me, so they did. And then they went back to finish taking everything out of his pockets and, just treating him as if he was a criminal.
He did not arrest you?
And did not arrest him. They ended up saying they would just write us a ticket. He would get a ticket for intoxication. And then at that point I said, I don't understand where intoxication is coming into the picture at, and I can't afford a ticket for intoxication for no reason. After me saying a few words about that, the lieutenant told her no tickets. She got very upset. She came back, threw up the ticket, and then she said we were free to go.
Were you drinking at the park?
No.
Okay, so...
And he explained to her, because she said, did you have anything to drink today? He said, I had a beer before I came to the park. And then she said, well, I can ticket you for intoxication because you admitted to me that you had a beer before you came to the park.
And so, what do you hope to do now that the video's out and that you're talking to the media today? And what kind of message do you hope to get across to them?
I'm looking for sensitivity training with the police first and foremost. I think that would be the best way to solve this issue. If we can just really make this, it's nationwide. This video has gotten so much, everybody's commenting, everybody's talking about it, but I just don't want it to stop here. I'm really looking for the police to acknowledge that they need better training and that the officers do not know all of the laws that, they should know. So there needs to be something done in a manner to make sure that they're not out there giving wrong information, to citizens, because there's crimes in that, in itself. So that's the main thing I want to get from this whole situation is just better training for the police so that they can talk and communicate and understand that there's different cultures within Chicago, and it's not the architecture in Chicago that makes it such a great city. However, it's the different cultures that we have, so the police need to know and be able to understand some of these cultures so that they can better communicate with the citizens.
Do you believe that you are within your rights to be recording that conversation?
Yes, I did. And the reason I recorded it is because
You always get negative views of police and civilians when they're in attack with each other, trying to talk about the problem, or it's usually during their arrest at the wrong time. This was actually at a good time when she was able to talk to the lieutenant. And I saw that and I said, look, these guys, she's really listening, she's talking, and it looks like they're having a good conversation. And I wanted to film the positivity of what was going on in our community as well as Garfield Park.
And it was for a few minutes, it was going without a problem.
Yes, definitely. They were talking for about 45 seconds to a minute before I even thought to record it, because I heard the conversation going so great, you know. So I just decided to record it because it was beautiful.
And we later found that the reason that the police showed up, the young lady showed up filming us, we later found that it was because they were doing a tit for tat sort of thing. That we was told that they don't like to be recorded, so they record the person that's recording them as if that person has something to hide, so they may feel a fear of being recorded. Well, when she recorded us, we had no problem with it. We saw her, she pulled up, she was filming us, we looked, I continued to talk because I'm not threatened by you recording it. It was great conversation, so.
And with the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court striking
No, I can't film. Get back in.
you guys leaving the
When we started to film and record it, we had heard footage from news. We were told to film a situation with the police. If you're alone with them and there's nobody around to be able to witness what you're saying, we were told to film the police. So, he felt inspired to film. And I didn't know what his purpose was at the time. I was talking and engaged with that officer, and then all of a sudden, there was just cameras. I really didn't know, but I did get afraid when she started filming us because, what are you going to do with your footage? Why did you film us? I just didn't understand her doing that. And then for her to be so angry, we later found that it was because she thought it was a negative thing. But it would have went out as a positive message had she not came in and just snatched that camera. We're not. I'm in the Berwyn area, and he lives in the south side of Chicago.
Okay, so what brought you guys down?
That's the park that we frequent for the last 15 years. I've known him personally, I've known him for 10 years. I met him at the park. He's actually a Chicago legend, and there's a lot of Chicago legends that frequent the park. So this park is a landmark. It's very historical, and there's never, in the 15 years that I've went to this park, I've never had one isolated event of a theft or robbery or even anything that I felt uncomfortable that would make me not come back to the park. So I had a massage chair at the park, and that was my first time, providing that service to the community, but something just told me, okay, why don't you do some massages and provide the service and awareness to the community. So I did it that day for the first time, even though I've serviced, so many different schools and organizations, with this service. That was the first time I did it. The police that came by all day and saw us, they looked, they didn't say anything. I don't know what angered them. We were told that they were coming into a park for a sweep. They never initially contacted us. We initiated the conversation with them by asking them a question when the sergeant came up. So, they weren't coming in the park to address me about being there with the massage chair. They were just coming in to sweep the park. And I said, hey, where can I find a CAPS meeting? And CAPS is an organization that the community can sit down with the police. So I said, since we've been coming to this park, they close it down anytime from 7 to 9 p.m. every day. And I just want to know, where can I go meet with someone to find out why they're doing this, and is there any way to get the park to close at the right time? Because there's working people, that come there. If you go to the park and see, there's people in uniform, there's adults from the ages of 30 to 50 years old. So this is not an area where you got all these kids hanging out and you got dangerous situations. This is not that. And the time that the officers need to spend out there in the streets to those type of situations are not getting the attention because other places are getting the attention that don't require the attention.
Mr. Collins, could I ask your opinion of the situation and why you're standing in solidarity with these people?
Well, my whole thing is this: 21 years of being a Chicago police officer, 45 years of being a resident taxpayer of the city of Chicago. It's important that at any branch of government that there is a respect for civilian rights, American civilian rights. And to me, I think one of the things that's most troubling about the video from the standpoint of what I was able to view, and I'm sure you've seen it, is the fact that there is this conversation going on between a a supervisor on the scene, and a citizen, which is very peaceful, it's non-threatening, there's plenty of space in between them, and this is simply a taxpayer, a citizen asking a question who did not know at first why the police were showing up in the park, didn't want to make any sudden movements because didn't know where the danger was coming from, didn't want to be, in case there was shooting or something, be in the line of fire, and simply was asking a question. During the process in which this conversation is going on, and it's quite a bit of longer than a minute actually, all of a sudden pulls up a squad roll, and an officer simply jumps out. And as soon as they grab the camera of the gentleman who is filming this conversation, which they have every legal right, and the Supreme Court has already ruled on, that they have a right to videotape in public, on public land, which is paid for by taxpayer dollars. The officer reaches up, grabs the camera, and simultaneously, while the camera's being grabbed, all of a sudden, handcuffs go on. Now that's frightening to me because I want to believe that I still live in a country where you can ask a question. And knowing the sacrifices that my relatives, and I'm sure many others have made in serving our great country, we want to make sure that those constitutional rights are protected. When I took an oath as a Chicago police officer to protect and uphold the U.S. Constitution and protect this country, this great land of ours, it was without reserve that that's exactly what I was taking an oath to and what I would do. And so as an American citizen, as a taxpayer, it is troublesome, and I believe that we need to once again address the issues of sensitivity and diversity training within law enforcement all over this great nation, but also within the Chicago Police Department, because we do live in such a diverse diverse community within this city, and that is important to remember. And so we have to remember the culture of those diversities within every community. Some communities, some things you have to address in different issues, different ways, because of the history of our great nation. And it's sad, even though I am a Chicago police officer, a law enforcement officer, it is sad to think that in the black community, my community, and in the Latino community, and some other communities, that there is a fear of the police. However, we need to address that issue because it is not a fear that is made up. It is a fear that comes from decades and decades of police brutality, lynchings, hanging, racism, and those issues have to be addressed. You certainly don't go to the doctor and tell him what your illness is and he doesn't address it. Well, the same thing has to happen in government. We have to address those issues. And so one of the things I talk about as an engineer in the city of Chicago is more diversity training, more sensitivity training with our officers, but also in making sure that the community in which we serve and protect is a mirror image of those who serve within our agencies. I think certainly as we take a look at Ferguson, the fact that there's only one black city council member in an area that's 90% black and the rest is all 80%. White, or 80 or 90% white, that's somewhat troublesome. Government should reflect the people in which it serves and protects and provides for. And what I'm saying is we need to have more equality, not only in government, but in jobs, but in public service, and in our schools. And so, taking a look at that video, it shows that we've got a long way to go. And I think in addressing those issues, opening up the lines of communication between the police department and the community is what's most important. Because how can you better serve the citizens in which you protect if you don't have lines of communication? And certainly under this superintendent, we don't have those lines of communication. They're just not there. And with this mayor, it's evident the lines of communication between the public and City Hall don't exist. We've had the largest school closings. There were over 50 school hearings. The mayor didn't attend one. You can't tell me there's lines of communication. It doesn't exist. The other thing is that our superintendent is from another place. And what has he really done to get out there, to make himself more approachable, to make himself more knowledgeable with our community? I certainly haven't seen him on my block, and I work for the mayor. So that is something and an issue that has to be addressed. Well, as the next mayor of the city of Chicago, I'm going to address those issues. You're going to see a reflection of the community in this city in which I continue to want to serve, reflected in every branch of government, every branch of government.
how would you describe what happened to you? How would you sum it up in a few words?
I think the word that I used was bully. Bully just keep coming to my head because I just feel like they were in a position of